welcome back to Two Pastors and a Mic. My name is Shannick.
And I'm Corey.
And we're so glad that you're listening. Wherever you are listening from, we appreciate you. We value you. We would love it if you would, if you haven't already, leave a review.
Yeah, do it.
We love the affirmation. We love how this podcast has been inspiring or encouraging to you, our listener. And so if you would take us up on that and reach out, whether it's on Apple or you can rate us on Spotify, or if you're listening from a platform where you cannot leave a message or a review, you can always email us at either Shannick or Corey at hillcity.tv. We would love to actually hear from you.
Yeah, and welcome all of you watching us on YouTube. Seriously, thank you for sharing this. The podcast over the last 2 months has blown up, and that was not an expectation, but that's because you are sharing it. And so thank you for your support. We really do appreciate that. I am so excited. I have never been more excited in church ministry than in the history of my life as I am right now. And a lot of that has to do with yesterday, or this past Sunday, as a church, we had our Vision Sunday. We announced something to our church that was exciting, something that's been on your heart for several months, if not years. And it's just an exciting time to be a part of Hill City Church. Why don't you tell everybody what we announced?
Yeah, well, very briefly, let me lay a little foundation.
Yeah.
Because I went through a season where I was really focusing on what's next for me personally, what's next for our church, what can I be leading our church into that can really make an impact in our community, because we do have what I feel like are amazing Sunday morning gatherings and worship services. We do those very well, but those have very quickly become just routine, and they're going to be well because we have a great team here. Yeah. So we can be a part of making bigger impact outside of the four walls. I feel like we've gotten a lot of our structure and systems in place here to really create an atmosphere for people to connect with Jesus, to one another. But how can then we connect with community? Because our purpose here at Hill City is to connect people with life. And we do believe the best life is found in Christ, but also in community. Not only when I say community, do I mean like a community of believers here at Hill City, but being involved in the community. And I've been praying and thinking about things for years, and I just found that I was lost, not knowing anything. But recently, I began to get a little vision around offering affordable housing. I love housing, real estate. We have a really good friend, Chris, who his company does remodeling, rehabbing of homes. We have a lot of ministry partners who have told us that once these clients of theirs have gone through different programs or like certifications or just going through their ministry to get healing in areas, that next step in affordable housing is just so difficult of an obstacle for these families. And so we decided, hey, well, we can do something about that. And I told the church this past week that this past February, I was trying to buy a house for myself, a foreclosure, and I saw this write-up that said only owner-occupants, nonprofits, 501c3s can put in offers at this time. And it was just like a flashing light, like that nonprofit 501c3. And I was like, wait, Hill City can be buying up all these houses before investors get in there, and we can do the work and we can provide housing for our community. We pay no property tax. We get tax exempt on all of our material. Like, why aren't we doing something?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we very quickly talked to the board. They were in approval. We don't know what this is going to look like exactly, but let's step out into it. And within a matter of weeks, someone sent me a text and said, hey, here's the house I think would be perfect for Hill City. And we pulled the trigger. So we're going to be involved this fall into renovating and remodeling this home. But the vision is that I've called this the RE initiative. RE is an R-E. And as we look at different words that begin with RE, they're very inspirational, because this is about reviving not just community and homes, but also lives, rebuilding lives and redeeming stories and re-empowering people, and also rethinking how we do church and repurposing the resources that we have and reimagining what this community could look like, with us actually stepping up and making a difference in not only offering homes, but coming alongside families and helping them holistically, so that they can be at a place where they are thriving in life, so that they're able to connect others to the same life that they've been connected with. And I'm excited about it. I love it. It's kind of in tandem with the house that I'm already doing for me personally. And so like, I know you've said this, but for the last few months up till this past week, getting all of like the direction for this and following through and the purchases and now the remodeling aspect of it, like I've been on cloud nine for the last few weeks for sure, because I just freaking love it.
Yeah.
I love everything about it.
And depending on when you're listening to this episode, this is the third week, I think, of August 2023. Someone might be listening to this and years down the road, and we're already owning so many houses and doing incredible stuff in the city. But yeah, I challenged a church yesterday to dream with us. And if you're listening to this and this is inspiring, we don't want to just challenge you to get involved with what we're doing here at Hill City. How can you take a risk and impact your community that you're in? Because guess who has the power to change the community that you're in? You. And I love that. I've been so inspired. I'm so proud of you, honestly. I know the struggle of where you've been without having vision or feeling like, okay, there's got to be something other than just good Sunday morning services.
Yeah.
And something outside of small groups, because depending on the leader and the people in it, they're hit or miss. And we can go on a tangent there. But yeah, okay, we have a lot of partners with people that are doing great things in our city, but what can we be pioneering and creating that not only gets people to come together to serve, which people will be coming together to serve and building relationships there, so connection's going to happen, but it provides something incredible for people who are not necessarily a part of our church. And the goal isn't to get them to be a part of the church. Yeah. The goal is just to love them where they're at without like they don't have to come to our church to be a part of what we're doing down there. And who knows what this could grow into. Multiple houses, maybe businesses. If you've got a skill that you don't feel like you're using your skill because, where do you fit in the church when it comes to providing something that you're passionate about? Well, this might be that outlet with however this grows and whatever this grows into. Maybe you're teaching budgeting classes to, 7 families that wouldn't have the money to go through a budgeting class, the irony there. Who knows? It's literally unlimited.
The potential is limitless. What this is going to open up to us. And I really think that I'm excited also about just the different partnerships from people in the community and businesses in the community. I've already had people that aren't a part of our church that have heard about what we're doing. I kind of let the details slip to some people that are surrounding me, even some fellow soccer families. And even though they are not necessarily a part of any Sunday morning gathering or included in a church somewhere that they would say that they belong somewhere in that regard, they still want to come out and help and give and volunteer. And so it's actually been well received, and I'm excited about that.
I'm really excited. Well, last week, the previous 2 weeks, we did 2 episodes just on 7 reasons why Jesus was not sacrificed for your sins, and 7 reasons why Jesus had to die. And so we just figured we'd go with this theme of 7. Actually, the next couple of weeks, we're going to do some fun things just around 7s. Today, we're talking about the 7 proponents of identity. And by identity, we mean the makeup of who we are and being aware of what and who have shaped who we are so that you can align the truth of how God views you, because your first and foremost identity is that you are a son or a daughter, and that's a permanent reality, son or daughter of the creator of the universe. And so identity plays a huge part in our lives. I know this is dear to your heart, Mr. Shancock Banty. You've heard the story before. I'm going to throw you on the spot. I think you have shared Shancock Banty.
I think I have on this podcast. But before I even share that story, what I want to say is when we talk about identity, in my opinion, it's one of the biggest things that we can talk about, the most important thing we can talk about.
Yeah.
And I know we've even talked about, a lot of people want to focus on this idea of sin. Matter of fact, even the last few podcasts were, 7 reasons why Jesus did not die to forgive sin. And then last week, 7 reasons why Jesus had to die. But so many people just want to focus on this sin idea. But, was he the lamb who took away the sin of the world or not?
Mm-hmm.
And if he was, then today we have to say we don't have a sin problem, but I would argue we have a major identity crisis.
Yeah.
People just don't understand, and they don't know fully who they are.
And who they've always been.
Yes. And so this is why this is so important. But you asked me about Shancock Banty, and I do love telling the story because it's such a fun story.
10 years ago, by the way.
It was 2013.
2013, summer of 2013. So it's over 10 years ago.
But it's made such a dramatic impact in my life. And when I tell the story, people relate to it very, very easily because they found themselves in a similar position, whether or not they were called something else and created this whole alter ego around, which we have. And I don't even know if I like that or not, but it's something we've done. But very simply, we were in Aruba and we didn't have reservations. So we thought, because a lady behind the check-in desk at the Westin was like, I don't see a Shannock Bandit. You're not here. And so I'm freaking out a little bit. Check again. She checked again. I'm sorry. I'm like, I know I have the reservation. My email wasn't working. My Wi-Fi wasn't working. Like, I can't find it right now, but I know for a fact we have reservations here. Can you look one more time, a third time? And she's like, I'm sorry, I don't see a Bandit. I don't see a Shannock Bandit. But wait a minute, I do have a Banty here, a Mr. Shancock Banty. And I immediately said, that's me.
Wait, me in the story, you're telling it too fast, but me and Reg were dying by this part.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go into detail because I think I've shared this episode on an episode. So I want to just very quickly go through. So from that point forward, that week especially, I wasn't Shannock Bandit, the pastor from Indiana. I was Shancock Banty, just some rogue wild stallion that could do whatever the freak he wanted to in Aruba.
A wild stallion.
I don't even know why I said it that way. But yeah, I don't know. It was me, you, Reg, and Hannah, and so my wife wasn't even there. And it's funny because even when I would go to like reserve a cabana or reserve a little dinner at the hotel, like we would walk up and the reservations would be under Shancock Banty. Like
the Banty.
My towel service was under Shancock Banty. The little sign at the cabana was reserved for Shancock Banty. So it just kind of made it, super fun. But, moving past that, coming back home, reflecting on that, even 10 years later, looking back, the question always remains, why did I enjoy so much being someone other than who I truly am? Like, why did I enjoy living out this, Shancock Banty alter ego? And when you get to the core of it, it's because partly I don't really understand, or I didn't understand fully my authentic identity, or I was scared that other people might view me a certain way if I truly just live and make decisions and I guess just live life how I really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had to do a certain thing and be a certain way, believe a certain thing, like
because of your position,
parent a certain way because of my position as a pastor. And some of that stuff is wise maybe to think about and to look through. But then there's other elements of it. What have I hidden? Where have I not been my true authentic self? Which creates sometimes this split in, I don't want to say personalities, but it's just like, is this a safe place? Is this not a safe place? Is this somewhere where I can be myself? Is it not somewhere I can be myself? So I found myself struggling with that in relationships. And instead of just being like, I'm just going to be myself regardless of who I'm around. And if people love me, they love me. If they can accept me, they accept me. And if they don't, that's okay. This is really who I am.
Yeah. I can't believe
it's going to be okay with that.
10-year journey on this. You're going to hate what I'm about to say, but I know that you've got a book in you and it's going to be a book on identity, and you've been prolonging that for 10 years. So you got to get on it.
Yeah. Well, okay, you say prolonged that for 10 years. I have written the first chapter called Shancock Banty, and I've shared it with you. And it's actually very good. I just don't know what else to add to it right now.
Great. Well, maybe it's an ebook. Regardless, hey, I'll give them a little, what's it called? Little plug for myself.
Yeah.
I'm almost done with my 21-day devotional book that's around identity. It's titled, What If I Told You? And it's a 21-day guide to knowing who you are and why it matters. It's really about how to live in confidence. And I'm excited for you as the listener to get it and to go through the 21-day Devo with whoever, but yourself or with other people. I think it's my best writing ever to date, and I'm really excited for that to release. So hopefully
I can't wait
over the next couple months it's going to be out. Well, anyways, there are 7 proponents of identity. They all start with the letter P. Shout out to Shannock Bandit. They are your past, people, personality, purpose, priorities, perspective, and passions. And so we're going to unpack these a little bit more and what we mean by some of these things. But the reality is we all have these 7 proponents that make up our identity, or at least a perceived identity of who we think we are.
Right.
Again, your identity is in Christ, regardless if you believe it or not. We want to help you believe it so that you can activate the truth of who you have always been. But your past, like what we mean by past, your lived experiences and cultural upbringing. Every single person has a different lived experience and a different cultural upbringing. Even if, we're both white males, middle-class white males, we have different cultural upbringing because you grew up in Southern Indiana. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, moved to Chicago in high school, went to Virginia. We had different cultural upbringing. So there's so many different aspects of this,
Yeah.
lower class, middle class, higher class, depending on how you grew up. Did you grow up with two parents or just one, or were you in the foster system? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, a lot of past experiences,
yeah,
and even like what you're talking about, even geographical differences
yeah,
can be a part of our makeup of identity and what we choose to walk out. I know being in from the Louisville area, like it's nothing for people around here to sip bourbon and drink on bourbon, or even to make their own homemade wine. Like those two things just go hand in hand, just from where we were raised. But someone raised in a different part of the country or maybe a different part of the world, they might look at that and like shun that or think that that's wrong, and but it's just part of the makeup of the culture
yeah.
that we've been raised in.
Even language is different when you talk about that perspective. Because have you ever seen those maps online? As like if you're north of the Mason-Dixon line, like you say you all, and if you're south of it, you'll say y'all.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of fun things with that because you call Coke, you call Pepsi Coke, right? You
yeah.
call
I
all
call all
drinks
soft drinks. I sometimes I'll
Cokes.
say soft drink, but most of the time I'll just say Coke.
Yeah,
Hey, do you
even
want a
in,
Coke? And what I mean is, hey, I have Sprite, Big Red, root
yeah, that's
beer,
crazy to me.
you know, Coke, Diet Coke. I just say, hey, do
And
you want a Coke?
we call soda pop where I'm from, so it's
Yeah,
what
and I
kind
know
of pop
that's
do you want?
language, and we're talking about identity, but part of it is just,
Yeah,
you know, the natural makeup of how we live, which is
exactly.
part of who we are.
Exactly.
So,
And people play a part of that as well.
mhm,
The past and
big part.
people kind of go hand in hand. Like who raised you, the environment that you were in, even in terms of siblings. They have identity psychologists that talk about your birth order. And it's a lot of it is real to a degree of why firstborns tend to be like this and why middle kids tend to be like this and why lastborns tend to be like this. Classmates, teachers, schools that you went to, pastors, if you went to a church hurt that you might have experienced from abusive church leadership, friends, local communities. What were you involved in? All of these play a part of our perceived identity of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think people is one of the big ones that
Yeah.
shape us and who we are. I'm from personal experience, you know, my parents and the people that were around my life, whether they were natural family or not, that really poured into me, shaped me. Even like people like my dad who would raise me in a certain way when it comes to work ethic and all of that. Like it's shaped my perspective now and my identity in being someone who values work and a job completed, things like that. And
Yeah.
so, for sure, people are a big part. Another one is just your personality.
Yeah.
And I know there are lots of different tests you can take out there to discover what that personality might be, but some people are different in their makeup of their personality and what they value, what they like, what they don't like, what their hobbies are, what strengths are, what weaknesses are. And I don't know, I've never really ran across any like scientific reason why people might have certain strengths or weaknesses, you know, depending on personality types. I don't know if it's just something that is, you know, innate in us
Yeah.
where we're just born a certain way with a certain outlook, or if it's past or people that have dictated some of that
Could be.
personality, and it
Sure.
could be. But yeah, personality is, you know, another big thing with the makeup of who we are in our identity.
Yeah, I love personality tests. You said personality tests, and you threw me off because the first thing I thought about was your frustration that you just shared with me
Oh,
behind
you want
closed
me to
doors.
share that?
Heck
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So we like disc profiles.
Yeah.
We've done it. I love the Enneagram. Learning your saboteurs, that's more of a counseling thing. There's so many different types of personality tests that you can take. I'm all about it. I enjoy this conversation, but why don't you share what happened with your disc
Yeah.
profile?
So the DISC, it's a different personality test. What you know, and it's just broken into 4, so it's very broad. I like the Enneagram; it's a little bit more personal and detailed, but the DISC profile is great. And you have the D, that's more the domineering. They're like the leaders; they care about the projects more than people. You have the I, which is the people person.
Mhm.
They don't care about the project getting done as long as everybody is having a good time, you know, that kind of thing. Then you have the S, which are more status quo. They're steady, loyal, faithful, those kind of people. And then you have the C, which are very analytical people, I would say. They're detail oriented. They care about following the rules. They care about, you know, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, like that type of person. And so for years, growing up, this is something that was a part of our church and the makeup of leadership and what we wanted everybody to take that was a part of our church so we can kind of better understand them. And growing up, I probably took my first test, you know, sometime in my teenage years, and I was like a D, like only D, and usually get like a strong one and a little bit lesser one, and then 2 or more of the weak one. And it was like D off the charts and almost nothing else. And then later on in my teenage years, I was a DI, which I was domineering, but I still liked people, but I cared about projects getting accomplished, right? That's that finisher in me and
Shocking.
the achiever in me. And then sometime in my 20s, I flipped. It went from a DI to a ID. So then I cared about people more than projects.
The pastor heart in you.
That, maybe the pastoral, which my dad is a pastor, but he is like an S.
Yeah.
Like a solid S, almost nothing else
He's
either.
steady
Like
Eddie for
steady,
sure.
status quo, like let's just keep going, methodical. So I would say I've taken this test probably since my mid 20s, and I was at an ID probably another 5 or 6 times, and I've been an ID every time for like 20 years, maybe over 20 years. Well, I'm a part of this new thing called Leadership Southern Indiana. They wanted to get to know me better, and so I had to take this personality test, and I took it, and I'm going to be honest, like I was rattled by the results because I'm no longer an ID. I became an IC, and I looked up what my D was, and it was the lowest of the 4. So I feel sometimes like something in me was like, I can't be this.
You had a midlife crisis.
Well, also in my perspective, this is the wrong perspective because all 4 are needed, all 4 are value, just like the Enneagram.
Yeah.
All of them are needed. There's not one above the other. Even though if people are an 8, they think they're the best.
Yeah.
Even though we can get into a long conversation of that. I'm not going to call anybody out on all that. But same thing with me. I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't have the D's the lowest. Like I'm a leader. I'm a pastor. This can't be because D's are the best.
Yeah.
If you have D personality, like that is the best one to have because you are the domineering. You're the leader. You're in charge. You're in control. But I was an IC and I'm like freaked out about it. I don't even know where we were going with
You're
that. I have
one pathetic loser.
I have nothing to say about it other than
You're still shook.
My personality's changing a little bit,
but it's good. It's
in seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have to be. I am in that season where I've delegated a lot.
You've done a great
job. So I don't
with
have to be the one that does it all.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the one that has to lead everything. So I can focus on a few other things and actually focus on people, which that's why my eye is still very high.
Yeah. I just wanted you to share that because personality, based on our experience, our lived experiences and the people around us, they can change over time. Just because you were something in one season doesn't mean you're always going to be that. And I think a lot of people they don't do that personality test often, so they believe that they're this person, but life has changed them. And that's okay. Change is okay. If you're the same person you were 20 years ago, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
That means you're not adapting and growing. The fourth one is purpose. And this is really dependent on, it can go back to people's personalities and what drives them, but it's like how quickly can you find personal meaning, satisfaction, contentment, and like how you want to impact your area of influence. And notice how I didn't say how you can impact the world, because the goal isn't to impact the world. Mother Teresa isn't even impacting the world. She impacted her world. So the question isn't about how can you impact the world and more how can you impact your world and really be aggressive in that way, in a loving way. But yeah, purpose. And I know people that have found purpose at a young age and then again, lived experiences, they either become dissatisfied with that or their desires and passions change. And now all of a sudden they want to pursue something else, but they're in that season of, man, I don't know what I want to do. And I don't feel like I have any purpose. And we call it a midlife crisis for most people in our culture, but that's the reality of it. It does play a huge part in your identity.
Yeah, it does. The next one is priorities. This is a big makeup of our identity, what we prioritize in our life. And some people value certain things, whether it's to bring them security, to feel safe, or they value certain things because it is something that brings them joy, happiness, things like this. And all of those, again, I don't know why people have certain priorities or another. I would say this one more than any of the other ones goes back to probably past experiences. You have different priorities. Let's just say you have a priority. You want to be the best dad possible. Either A, that was modeled for you and you want to live up to that standard that your dad set, or the opposite. Maybe your dad wasn't in your life and he wasn't a good dad. And so you're going to do everything you can do. My priority is I want to be the best dad possible. And so I think that some of it, again, goes back to our past or people that have shaped, I think, our priorities today.
Yeah, those are values that were instilled in you in formidable years, and yeah, it's what matters to you. The other one is then perspective. Of all those previous 5, your past, people, personality, purpose, and priorities, your perspective on how you viewed those lived experiences matter and kind of shape your identity. Again, your ability to share your own perspective, but also hear other people's perspective. We can look at one event, the same event, and depending on where we are and where we are mentally in it while we watch that event, we can take away different experiences from that event. It could be the best event of my life and the worst event of yours, depending on all of those variables. And that's the reality, is it? And so are you an open-minded person when it comes to perspective? And it might not be your lived experience, but can you empathize with other people that might be their lived experience, even if you don't believe that to be true?
Yeah.
And are you that type of person that is open to perspective? Because that does, again, shape your identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just hit the seventh one real quick, and then we'll go through and kind of talk about why we chose to talk about this specific thing with these 7 pieces of identity and that shape our identity. And the last one is simply just our passions. Now, this can be confused with our purposes, but I think they're a little different. When I think of purpose, like the capital P purpose, I think of, like, as well as followers of Jesus, we're called to love. That's the command, simply to love. Now, how that love is displayed, how we walk that out, can be in our passions. And so it's like the lowercase p is passions.
I like that.
In our life. And so it's those things that we desire to be a part of, to make a difference in. Again, maybe kind of not only out of our authentic self, but also a lot of the times that past or people, and with all of them, I guess, that can shape some of our passions and what we want to be involved with based on our experience. And the reason why, though, that this is so important, we want to talk about the 7 makeup of our identity, is because we want you to know that, all of the things that are in your life or have happened to you, or the experiences, they have in some way shaped who you are. But we wanted to talk about that because they don't have to, though, define who you're becoming or who you'll be. Yes, we can talk about these 7 things, that these are the makeup of our identity, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay there. It doesn't mean that, just because you've had past or people or this perspective in your life leading up to this point, that there can't be change. And I think the change comes when we match up and align with our true authentic identity, and that is found in what God sees in us and how he views us. And so, yes, you might have different past and traumas and, passions, all of the things that we talked about, but ultimately, do we look at ourselves as someone who is fully whole, fully perfect, fully beloved, all of the stuff that we can talk about, fully accepted. We can just keep going, because that is our true authentic identity. And I think the reason why I love talking about identity so much and getting people to a place to realize that ultimately, right, the end goal for me is to help people understand that above everything else, they are a beloved son or daughter, period. And I want them to get to that place, because once they find their, I don't want to say happiness, but their sense of self, just knowing their identity, and how their Father views them and sees them, it's from that place they can really begin to make an impact into other people's lives. Because so many people, like the old saying, hurt people and all of that. Like, when we don't understand our true authentic self, we look sometimes for opportunities to help, but if we're not fully complete, in our thinking, maybe we can't offer the full help that we need. And so I just think when people align with their true identity, they're able to walk out this thing called kingdom, right? Presenting righteousness, peace, and joy, just in a more clear and impactful way.
I love that. And that's why I'm so excited to be a part of Hill City Church in this season, because I shared this yesterday as we were closing. But again, most vision statements for churches or vision Sundays are about church growth and give to this project and more money, more people. And although that might be great, or, if that happens, awesome. But the reality is we wanted to impact the community and help people understand their identity is already given to them. You don't have to work for or earn for. This was happened because of Christ. You were created this way. We truly believe that. But we want you to own it so that you can actually impact your community in a proper way, in a redeeming way, in a re-empowering way, in all those re's that you talked about earlier. So yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, I love it. So if you're listening still to this episode, I'm going to challenge you to do one thing. I want you to just sit in silence sometime this week and just begin to think about how you think our Heavenly Father views you and sees you. And I want you to get a revelation of the love that he has for you. And that is your true identity. Sit in that, soak it up, and then from that place, I think life will begin to just explode into new exciting things. Um, yeah. And so above all else, just know you're loved and there's nothing you can do about it.